I'm sure most of you have heard of the legend of the wailing/weeping woman. If not, it's one of the most popular urban legends from Mexico. This story has been told differently from generations. The legend goes that a village woman married a decent, wealthy man. They had 3 kids together later on, and as the kids grew, he grew more bored of his own wife. He stopped giving her attention. She found out about his affair with another woman at some point in time. The woman grew mad, and in her mind, he deserved punishment. The way she did this was by luring her 3 children to a river and drowning them all. After realizing what she had done, she wept and called for them. "My kids, where are my kids?" Growing up in a Mexican culture, some kids were heavily traumatized being told this story from adults. This story would only be told if the kids were misbehaving, and adults would say that she would take us away if we were to misbehave. At least on my end. Even as a kid, I figured it was all fake, until I experienced it myself. Backstory. My parents were born in a well-known town in Mexico. They were able to become US citizens as soon as my mom got pregnant with my older brother. With that being mentioned, my grandparents stayed in Mexico. A tradition we had as a family was to stay over at my grandparents' house, mom's side, every weekend. We were 4 kids in total, with me being the second oldest. My grandparents lived in a quiet neighborhood and everyone knew each other there. Every weekend my family would stay there, but one weekend in particular was different. My parents ended up crossing back to the US, I think to attend a wedding or something, I don't remember. So me and my 3 siblings were left to stay there. Of course we loved staying with our grandparents. Context. In their living room, they had a set of 2 futons. Every night my grandma would set them up, one for us and the other one for my grandma to keep an eye on us. Though the youngest was 2 to 3 years old and would sleep with her anyway. That left the oldest, me, and the 3rd sibling sleeping on the other. This one was faced in front of a small window covered by a sheer, beige curtain. The house was built with what's called a galleria, like a gallery. Basically there was no front yard but more like a patio. They would also leave the light on every night so anyone who would pass by, you would see their shadow. I was roughly around 7 to 8 years old and the year was likely to be 2006 in the middle of spring or summer. I remember this night so clear because I was extremely scared. My grandma had this entertainment center in the middle of the living room that had those boxed, dome-like TVs with a radio on top of it. They showed a digital time of hour in green. I had trouble sleeping. I kept watching the time go by and nothing seemed to work. The radio read 1:14. I closed my eyes shut to force to sleep, then I heard the most chilling thing. "My kids, where are my kids?" Her voice echoed in the galleria. I was frozen in place. I started sweating. Everyone was asleep. I looked back at the radio. It stayed at 1:14. There was a scream a minute after, and then it went quiet. Me remembering the legend being told, I was scared shitless and went under the covers and prayed. I tried waking up my oldest brother, but he wouldn't wake up or he would just shrug me off. I took off the covers since I stopped hearing her, but on the window, I could see someone approaching from the galleria. At this point, I knew my soul left my body. I watched the silhouette of a woman slowly approaching and stopped directly at the window. I looked back at the radio. 1:14 still. I don't know how long I sat at the window. That person didn't move whatsoever. Just faced the window. I immediately went back under the covers and whispered to go away. I'm not sure how long this went on for. I was drenched in sweat, so I uncovered myself. I looked back at the window. No shadow, no silhouette. I looked back at the radio, and the time changed to 2 a.m. I think about this experience 19 years later. Logically, one may think it could have been a woman on drugs or drunk. But that neighborhood was a quiet one. As a matter of fact, if someone were to hear they needed help, everyone will come out their homes to their side. The cherry on top is that my grandma's house was built near a creek. Hi, this is my first post, so I'm sorry if it is all over the place and long. I, 18 female, have been experiencing weird happenings in my 100-and-something-year-old house. For some context, I moved in 9 years ago after the old owner passed away in the home. When my family and I began living here, paranormal happenings were more frequent. The occasional footsteps in the attic that seemed to be a large man at night, and eerie feelings from rooms, but once you leave the room and enter another, they dissipate. Just strange, unexplained occurrences. But it got worse after one day there was a loud 3 knocks on the front door. My mum looks out the window and sees no one there, so she doesn't open it. Then a few months later, the same 3 knocks occur, this time at the back door. At this point, at the age of 15, I descended the stairs and felt this intense feeling of dread. Not aware of what was occurring, but just hit by this dark energy. To this day I can recall how that felt, even 3 years later, because of how intense it was. I reached the landing at the bottom of the stairs and see my worried mother. Then one last time, there were 3 knocks. This time at the window. This sent my mother over the edge and she opened the front door, stepping out to the porch, and looked for whoever was knocking. But no one was there. At least no one we could see. After this day, the paranormal events became even more frequent and terrifying. I'd feel pressure at the end of my bed when I'd be lying in bed, almost like someone was sitting on my feet. But no one was there. It got so bad that one night I was asleep in bed with the door wide open, and no windows were even open or a fan on. And my mum was sitting on the couch in the hall, talking to my dad. And then my door slammed shut. My parents thought it was me and opened the door, mad that I was still awake and that I had slammed the door that could wake my sister. But it wasn't me. I was sound asleep on my bed like I had been for the last 2 hours. The noise didn't wake me, and I had to be told about the story in the morning. At this point, my mother had had enough. She saged the entire house on repeat, "You are not welcome here," or even just leave. My mother did this activity over and over until the paranormal stopped, which it had for a while. Fast forward to last week, and I feel like it's back. Something different though. I wake up to get ready for school and go downstairs to brush my teeth. I brush my teeth, and as I'm kinda spaced out, I vividly hear my dad say my name like he needed something. Without second thought, I spit out my toothpaste and head towards the kitchen where it sounded like the voice came from. I see no one there. My sister enters the kitchen and I ask her where Dad is. She tells me he left early for work an hour ago. I stand there dumbfounded. I tell my sister what happened and she just laughs it off and calls me crazy. I've come here right now too because the event reoccurred just now. My parents were watching a show in their room and I just came home and went in to say hi. Keep in mind it's probably 12, so my little sister should be asleep. I stood there in the room looking at the TV when I heard my sister say in a baby voice like she was speaking to a cat. "What are you doing in there?" Then she chuckled. It sounded like it was coming from the bathroom adjacent to my parents' room. I asked my mum why she's still awake, and my mum asked me what I'm talking about. I asked them if they didn't just hear my sister, and they looked at me like I was crazy. I needed to check for myself, so I look in her room and see her dead asleep. This is what put me over the edge. I vividly remember hearing her, but there's no way it could have been. Her bed is the top of a bunk bed, so I'd catch her climbing or hear her, but I didn't. I'm worried I'm going crazy or something. I believe it's a mimic, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'd love for some answers and possibly tips. Thank you. After reading some of your comments at dinner, I told my family my latest experiences. My family all kind of laughed it off, but my father told me he had an experience recently. Something to know about my father is that he's quite a serious man, so the fact that it startled him kind of frightened me. One night my dad was walking two dogs in the backyard. Context, my yard is quite large, and right behind it there are a mile of woods. The sky was quite clear and the moon was almost full, so it was bright enough to see. My father said that as he walked he heard footsteps, and even the dog started to look towards the sound, but no one or even an animal could be seen. He said he rushed inside, which isn't like him, because my father isn't scared easily. It was night though, and there were a lot of little animals, so maybe it was that. I'm honestly not too sure. But it freaked my dad out.